The Committee of Finance will come to order for our 2:30 agenda on this Thursday. First up is House Bill 247 HD1 relating to agriculture. First up is Department of Education.
Sorry about that. Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Kurt Otogo, Deputy Superintendent, testifying on behalf of Superintendent Hayashi of the Department of Education. We stand by written testimony in opposition to the measure. Let me just preface it by saying that the department is not against 30% by 2030, and we are absolutely in support of buying local. But the way the bill is specified, we believe that the additional increments to get the 50% by the time frame would be unachievable based on what our knowledge state on the capacity. So we're here to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Department of Ag.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Sharon, Department of Agriculture. The department comments that this bill, we are supportive of the local purchases, but we do defer comments to the state departments in the University of Hawaii system that actually has to implement the program. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Farm Bureau.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. The Hawaii Farm Bureau will stand on its written testimony in support. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Ulupono.
Good afternoon, Chair Yamashita, Vice Chair Kitagawa, members of the committee. Michael Munikata here on behalf of the Ulupono Initiative. We'll stand on our written testimony in support of this measure. Chair, just one brief comment. A lot of these departments are setting forth on a difficult task, but a worthy task to get more local produce into our institutional meals, And we think that it might be worthy to request that some of these departments, such as the Department of Education, to look into strategic business plans on how they will actually meet these goals. So that's a comment we have towards the end of our testimony there, Chair. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Hawaii Farmers Union United.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Hunter Hevelin here on behalf of Hawaii Farmers Union United. We'll stand on our written testimony in support. I'd like to reinforce that some of the amendments in this bill seek to clarify who actually receives benefit from this significant subsidy that we hope will benefit not just keiki in our schools and the various programs that the state operates, but also the producers working so hard across our Hawaii. I'm happy to answer any questions. There's a lot of new ideas and amendments in there related to new positions in the executive branch, et cetera. But we hope to see this move forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hawaii Public Health Institute.
Chair, Vice Chair, committee members, my name is Dennis Chase, and I am the program manager for the Farm to School Hui at Hawaii Public Health Institute. The Farm to School Hui includes over 40 organizations around the state, as well as over 120 individuals who are working in and enthusiastic supporters of Farm to School. And we believe this bill is an important step towards reaching many of the Farm to School goals. We would like to note that, as the Department of Education said, this is a very difficult task to reach the 30% goal, and we believe that this specific bill will help the Department of Education and help us and all of our groups to support them and to make it easier and more realistic to meet those goals. And I am very happy to answer any questions afterwards. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Hawaii Appleseed.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Daniela Spoto, and I'm with Hawaii Appleseed Center for Law and Economic Justice. We stand on our written testimony and support. Also just want to highlight and echo some of the other testifiers, noting that because of the coordination role that this bill includes, the Farm to State liaison that would be housed in the governor's office, we agree that we think it will actually facilitate reaching these benchmarks. We also appreciate the inclusion of an action plan, or corrective action plan clause should the benchmarks not be met. So, even though, yes, we think it's nice to align the farm to state and farm to school goals, we also think this bill includes some other provisions that will really help the overall initiative be successful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yvonne Yoro?
Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Yvonne Yoram, and I'm testifying in strong support for this bill to establish a farm-to-school liaison. I support the help and the coordination efforts across all departments, and I support that individual will ensure that we are on track to meet the outlined targets between 2025 and 2050. With the expansion of the reporting requirements, the liaison will be critical in assisting with the reporting needs and help to ensure the well-being of Hawaii's children and local farmers. That the well-being of Hawaii's children and local farmers are reflected in each department's procurement decisions. It's been 2 years since the passage of Act 175, and we're only at 6.2 locally sourced food being served in our public schools. Currently, the procurement of food in our public schools reinforces support for non-local agriculture. The lack of a robust and well-coordinated plan leaves me doubtful that we will even be able to provide and feed our students 30% locally sourced food by 2030. In order to shift our support to our local farmers and local economy, we need to acknowledge that our bottom line needs to focus on the long-term well-being of our children in Hawaii. Mahalo.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, members, questions? Okay, Representative Kobayashi.
May I ask, who is the chief author of this bill?
Chief
May I? I think that the bill would be more attainable if you broke it up into pieces. That is, DOE is the hardest organization to reach these goals because it is so large. You name other entities, including university system, public safety and defense. I would suggest you rethink how you approach this problem. Perhaps you might think of certain school complexes. You might think of certain university campuses as opposed to the entire system statewide, and try to get bits and pieces of your 4 agencies to achieve more food self-sufficiency, and try to figure out how these food sufficiency programs can be, shall we say, incentivized. You know, you've got to mix carrot and stick. I don't see any carrots in this one.
Well, I will say we're certainly in support of carrots. And I should also clarify, this was not written in my role as the government relations for the Hawaii Farmers Union. This is just in my other capacities. As initial, sort of the first crack at this, the way that the Acts 176 and 175 are written, they established that broad approach, right? That we're going to try and tackle the entirety of these departments.
You don't have to follow someone else's mistakes.
This is true. This is, and to your point, this effort was actually intending to correct some errors. So at current, the Department of Education has 2 conflicting goals that they are supposed to achieve in terms of the percentages. So this was intended to try and align some of those and make clearer, as well as to try and streamline some of the reporting for it. And in terms of your comments about it having a lot going on, I'm inclined to agree. Some of these were added during this session. And if there are opportunities, or if there were other vessels that it seemed like would be more beneficial to move some of these into, I think we're open to that. But at current, we were unable to identify others to say add in, for example, the position in the executive branch.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Representative Ward.
Thank you, Chair. DOE, please. Sir, is it easier to grow food or generate electricity? And that's
Both are
rhetorical, but it's a way of saying, look, we got phasing out of fossil fuel about in the same timeline as yours. And that's probably a huge leap of effort. Let me go right to the carrot, as the representative said. If we increased your budget and you passed the money to the farmers to incentivize them to sell you the food, would you take a deal like that?
If you gave the department more money.
To give pass-through, to increase the
Pass-through.
prices, to incentivize the farmers to deliver the
Yeah,
food?
no, I appreciate that. I think what we're dealing with is not the intent or the desire to get there. It's a capacity issue with ensuring that the farmers deliver what we say we need on a contractual basis, right?
But according to another gentleman in this room, they are selling to other places because the price is different and easier than selling to you guys. You gotta go through procurement and all these other
We gotta go
hoops.
through procurement, the numbers are smaller, and yeah, we have all that issue from a business perspective, fiscal responsibility to the farmers, if they can make as much money selling to the state that they could to a restaurant, as an example, or some other private entity, yeah, that might help, but that still doesn't solve our challenge of capacity to provide, not now just the DOE, but you got public hospitals and the prisons. Everybody's demanding the same amount of food, which would be the highest, at the same time. And so there'd be a lot of coordination that would have to occur. Yeah, we just feel it's a capacity issue. We gotta work with the farmers and the Hawaii Farm Bureau and the other entities to ensure that we can get what we.
But generally speaking, in business and in agriculture, it's a market issue. Nobody wants to buy our product. Here, we've got a captured audience of hundreds of schools, thousands of kids. But I could see slowing it down would make you feel more comfortable. Chair, may I ask the Farm Bureau another question?
Sure, please proceed.
Is Brian still here? Brian? Yamamoto? He's the farmer's representative, and he's always filled with good answers. Brian, a carrot. He's raise your right hand. A capacity issue. The price incentive to where, do you have enough farmers to feed the DOE, or do you not have enough farmers? And if you could give an incentive for them to grow more food to basically a guaranteed market, would your farmers react to that? Would they respond to it?
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair. Thank you, Representative. I wore purple today.
Oh, you forgot your answer then.
Representative, I think we had a vibrant discussion about this. Absolutely, a price would be an incentive, but you know, the bills that the Finance Committee passed yesterday is something that we're looking for. How do we build capacity? The tax credits that we had, ways to reduce the cost of production, which should hopefully reduce the cost of the food, but also building the capacity of the farming community. We've got 7,300 farms. I think you heard Farmers Union talk about yesterday some of the initiatives to support the livelihood, the commercial farmers. We need to build scale. We said that over and over. Again, the attraction with the Department of Education and the other state agencies would be possibly long-term contracts. Hopefully, as the chair brought up, there are force majeure provisions in there because farming is a tough business. We see the terrible weather that we're having right now. We see the impact of the farmers anytime we have this kind of weather. But also price could be an issue. There are multiple markets, as you've heard the Department of Education heard me say also. Absolutely, there is interest. There is desire from our farmers and our ranchers to participate in the Farm to School program. We just need to help build capacity. We need small farmers to come up to the middle-sized farmers.
And when you say build capacity, that's what I see as the DOE. I mean, that's a guaranteed closed market. The point is, we're trying to diversify the economy. Ag always comes up as the first one. This is a guaranteed market, but yet we can't do it because something in the farming situation, i.e. the price is my sense of it. If you added another 20 or 30% onto the farmers, wouldn't they naturally gravitate to feeding the DOE more?
I would believe so, absolutely. Again, but the food hub concept that we push, right? Again, the food safety issue that was brought up in a bill yesterday. So there's multiple things. I think the legislature is addressing a lot of these issues. We need to grow the industry. If we're gonna serve these different markets, we had a food bank bill yesterday. I know we're talking about farm to state, farm to school specifically. So we need to build the capacity of farmers, and a lot of the initiatives that we're seeing and a lot of support, we want to see the increased support so we can support the farmers, so we can meet those goals. The 30%, the 40%, the 50%. Why stop there? We'd love to see it even higher. But the reality is we do need to build capacity.
What's the percent right now that we heard?
6.2%.
I mean, that's pretty Manini stuff. That's really small.
6.2%. There is a goal, and again, the bill, as you heard, was to align the two different goals: 18% in 2030 and 30% in 2030, based on Act 175, Act 176. So again, if we set the goal, and we've heard DOE in the past say that they believe they can meet the 30%, that's the goal to shoot for.
We have to
We're
set
gonna
the
shoot
goal,
for
but
those
we have to
goals.
incentivize the ones who are carrying the ball to the goal. That's my biggest concern.
Absolutely, increase the DOE's food budget.
Exactly. We got to do something. If we're going to diversify ag, and we've got thousands of mouths that we can feed as a guaranteed market, something is not working in how we're organizing this.
It is represented. Again, those long-term contracts are desirable. So there are incentives. We just, as the Farm Bill said before, we can't tell a farmer what to grow, but the legislature can incentivize them. The things that you want, provide incentives for the farmers so that you can direct what you want to see. And farm to school is something that I think we all can support, and we all want to see succeed.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you for wearing blue.
Thank you, Representative. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Representative Morikawa.
Thank you. I'm sorry I came in late, Chair. My question is for Department of Education. The Kekaha, didn't we get some funding to try to acquire that property to do some kind of innovation thingamajigger? Can you tell me what's going on with that?
Yes, thank you for that question. In fact, you're talking about the BEX facility
Yes.
out in Kekaha, right? So AS Tanaka has been actively involved with that. They've entered into a contract. The state is going to acquire it for just a little under $6 million. And so maybe AS Tanaka can explain the current status. We're in some legal transfers and paperwork, but yeah, there's
I'd like
an
to
absolute.
see how this
yeah.
might be able to be like a pilot for what
Yes,
we're trying to
yes,
accomplish.
yes, it is.
Chair, Vice Chair, Committee, yes, we expect to close on this on March 10th or somewhere in there. All the legal papers are in place, so we will acquire this facility. And in that time, we're working with Waimea High School as part of their ag program. We see this like at one time, the Hawaii Sugar Planters Association has a research facility and development facility. We see this facility as part of that opportunity. And it's adjacent to the farm community, which is critical, a very diverse farm community. So we are excited about that because it brings us into the next range.
Right,
Yeah.
yes, and that's why I'm thinking, we all are going the same way, but maybe we're pushing too hard. And so maybe we should just see where this goes, and if it works, then we can continue doing it all over the state. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further question? Okay, we're going to move on to the next bill. Oh, Representative Kahaloa.
Thank you, Chair. My apologies for running late. A question for the DOE. In the previous amendment to this bill, we did add a position in the governor's office. So I just wanted to ask what the DOE's position is on that, because I don't believe it was addressed in the testimony.
Yeah, I guess our position, any time we have dedicated people to help facilitate, that's a good thing. It's no different from a facilitator in the governor's office for homeless. That sends a good message, and that gives the state more clout to organize and facilitate that. Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to execute. And so it really depends. We didn't put any testimony on that because we're unclear specifically what the job duties would entail, but I think it's a good step forward to have a position dedicated.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Representative Ayu.
Brian, can I ask you a quick question? I know we heard a bunch of these. I know we heard a bunch of these other farm to school bills. are they like, do they all work together, or you need all of them, or does one like supersede another one? Can you kind of just explain how they all fit together, or what your position is on all of them as it relates to this one?
Chair, Vice Chair, Representative IU, Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. Thank you for the question. I think they're all trying to accomplish the same goal. You know, sometimes there's danger if the bill there's too many things in the bill. As I said, I think the original intent of this bill was just to align Act 175, Act 176 goals, or the metrics in there. The more support we can get to farm to school, the better. And I think some of these bills address different things. This bill, as you heard previous testifiers say, that there's a few other things in there. I think they're all good. We don't necessarily have any comments other than that we support the bill because we do want to see success in farm to school.
So you need all of them for like the whole thing to come together. That's what you're saying.
Representative, I don't know if we need all. Again, I think there's, from our standpoint, there's all safety when there's multiple bills, multiple vehicles,
Okay.
to ultimately achieve the goal that we want to achieve.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further, Representative Kila?
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if they self-identified, but is there anybody here from the University of Hawaii? Online, in person? Okay.
No.
Can I have a question for Brian, I'm sorry. Can you just sit down? You're just so popular. Thank you for wearing purple today in honor of Alzheimer's Advocacy Day. I have a question.
Yep.
When you folks help facilitate local food banks, how many of the products that is distributed is coming from local farmers?
Chair, Vice Chair, Representative Kila, thank you for the question. Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. When we facilitate food bank or food distributions, it's 100%.
Okay. So knowing that you folks can meet those demands, is it too aggressive in the intent of the bill?
Representative, I think the 30% I think is a reasonable percentage. Again, that's 7 years, but it has a goal that we need to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
So it's incumbent on industry with the support of the legislature and the administration to increase farming capacity. I think it helps us get to goals that we want to get to a lot of the legislative goals on increasing ag production. Specifically, when we're talking about farm to school, we're talking about just food production, but for the Farm Bureau, we're looking to increase all ag production because we believe different commodities can support like our nursery industry. The larger the industry is, I think the better we are as a state.
Would the local agencies have to go through the same processes of procurement when it comes to getting these local food?
For the farm to school?
Yeah, well, I guess farm to state, right?
Farm to state, yes, the procurement. So that's one of our challenges is helping farmers navigate through the procurement code. In the past, some of them just didn't want to even consider participating because they thought it was a little bit difficult. But there is, again, there are farmers out there that want to participate. If there's a way that we can help make it easier, or at least educate them or teach them how to navigate through the procurement code, we want to encourage the farmers and not disincentivize them because they think it's too difficult to manage the procurement code. But again, one of the things we do want to see is a force majeure. We don't want to see because of natural disasters or something that our farmers are being punished because they can't meet their contractual obligations to the Department of Education.
Sorry, Chair, one more question. Does procurement code not prohibit one entity representing several farmers to fulfill a contract? Is that not possible? Or does it have to be named as one entity?
Representative, I'm not familiar with that. I don't want to speculate on what that answer is. We could inquire with the procurement office, or maybe there's someone else here in the audience that has a little bit more background on the procurement code.
Oh, okay. Would you know?
I think the cooperative represents a number of producers and has been previously in contracts with the Department of Education, so it's certainly possible. And as written, the food hub notation would then help us understand whether the purchasing is directly from a farmer or from an aggregator.
Ah, okay, because that brings up, I think when we do like other projects, there's always the middleman that represents the several folks, and I was wondering, sorry, this is such a great topic. When it comes to the farmers and all of this, are they able to bid potentially on procurement contracts in the anticipation of the money to anticipate the crops, or they have to have it full force?
So he's talking about forward contracting. I don't know if the DOE does that for procurement contracts for farm to school. Maybe that's the question.
Yes, thank you, Rep.
Good translation.
Well, Randy Tanaka, I don't think we do it as probably a regular practice that we intend to do going forward, because the only way we can achieve that volume is we have to have a multiplicity of suppliers because of just the erratic nature of the market due to climate reasons or whatever you have. But that is our intention going forward.
So there currently are no forward contracts in place for farm to school presently, and you hope to not do that in the future?
No.
Oh.
I think we should do it.
Yes.
Okay.
We have multiplicity of contracts. We got to put it all out through the RFP process. So that's where we are right now. But I think we had an idea to prepay farmers because we'll get the product, but it's tough. Farming's a tough business, as Brian has put it before. I mean, the margins are razor thin. So it's a tough business.
No, and I appreciate Rep. Kaholo for the translation, because I think that's what we're maybe missing, and I think that's maybe the compromise. But thank you, Chair, for allowing
Okay,
me those
thank you very much.
questions.
Any further questions? Okay, we're gonna move on to the next bill, House Bill 576 HD1, relating to feral chicken management. First up is Department of Agriculture.
Maybe I don't have to move it. Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Sharon Hurd, Department of Agriculture. The department testifies that we are in regular collaboration with the Department of Land and Natural Resources. But we do oppose this bill because this bill provides for our collaboration to be on feral chicken management projects. And we oppose it because that particular sector, that responsibility, animal control, is better accomplished by the counties because it is under their jurisdiction. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, members' questions. Representative Ward.
Department of Agriculture. So you don't disagree with the bill, you just think it's in the wrong jurisdictional area. Is that
Ward, yes.
your point?
Mhm.
Is it doable? Can we harvest chickens like we harvest axis deer?
Called range-free chickens.
Yeah. You don't like the term feral chicken?
Well,
Should come to Hawaii Kai. We got
we
plenty.
would have, we would be hard-pressed to pass food safety standards. We would have to do some intensive testing. It's not going to be something that the Department of Agriculture would do willingly without setting up a testing lab. I see why the Department of Land and Natural Resources was brought in, because they are in charge of wild animals in the state. But that's,
But you
this is
you guys
county.
don't do anything with chickens then?
Pardon?
You don't do anything with chickens, Department of Agriculture?
Well, chickens that are raised for food consumption, chickens that are put into, egg production, food production chickens, yes. These chickens, no.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Okay, we're gonna be moving on to House Bill 690 HD1 relating to agriculture. First up is Department of Agriculture.
Again, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, this is a very important bill to the department, and we fully support it. It does provide funding for the local agricultural sector. It allows us efficiency, it allows us response in a very efficient manner, and we fully hope that the chair, this body passes this on, because it's very important to the farmers, ranchers, growers, and producers for the state.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Farm Bureau.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. We'll stand on our testimony in support of this measure. Just want to make a correction, Chair. Incorrectly said that the matching is 33% in our written testimony. It's actually 25%. So we support this. We think it's a great program. It's going to help our farmers. So we stand in strong support of this measure. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up is Ulupono.
Afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Michael Munikata here on behalf of the Ulupono Initiative. First off, I want to just thank you for hearing this measure, Chair. We do find this bill to be very important for the agricultural industry and finding ways to develop the industry. To meet a lot of what's been said actually earlier in the previous measure, to help scale up agriculture to be a bigger player in our economy. I think that's what we're all seeking to do. This bill seeks to do that. There are some aspects within this measure that add some level of accountability, being general funded and through reporting. There's also a match requirement, so you tend to get a lot more of the serious farmers that tend to treat farming as their primary employment. So there are some great aspects to this bill, including the issues that are identified. There's 7 of them listed. These are based upon roughly about 3 years of outreach with producers in various means, identifying their top issues that they're experiencing on a daily basis. So, we just really hope that we can continue to move this bill forward, Chair, and thank you again so much for hearing it.
Okay, thank you. Hawaii Farmers Union United.
Good afternoon again, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. Hunter Hevelin on behalf of Hawaii Farmers Union United. Just want to stand on our written testimony in support of this measure, and as previous testifiers have covered sufficiently, I believe, we also view this as an important mechanism to support the agricultural industry in its growth and ideally to become a more vibrant sector. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up is Local Food Coalition.
Good afternoon, Chair Mashita, Vice Chair Kitagawa, members of the committee, Kenda Matsuyoshi on behalf of the Local Food Coalition. Will stand on our written testimony in support of the bill. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up is the Humane Society of the United States. Okay, not here. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, members, questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to the next bill, House Bill 55 HD1 relating to education. First up is the Attorney General.
Good afternoon, Chair Yamashita, Vice Chair Kitagawa, members, Deputy Attorney General Ann Horiuchi. As we set forth in our testimony, in reviewing this bill, we noticed that the bill does not state what monies are to be used to fund the Community Schools Grant Program. So we have suggested that if general funds are to be used, that appropriate language be added to the bill to make that appropriation clear and that it will be expended from general funds. Thank you. I'll be available for questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up is Department of Education.
Good afternoon, Chair Yamashita, Vice Chair Kitagawa, and members of the committee. Kara Tanimura, Interim Assistant Superintendent for the Office of Strategy, Innovation, and Performance, testifying on behalf of the Department of Education. We stand on our written testimony with comments on this measure. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Okay, thank you. HSTA.
Aloha, Chair, members of the committee. Laverne Moore, speaking on behalf of Osa Tui Jr., President of the Hawaii State Teachers Association. The association stands on our written testimony, and I want to give some points. More than half of the Hawaii public school students are low income. They come to kindergarten already trailing the more privileged students, and if ever they have difficulty catching up, they are less likely to have support at home to succeed, are less frequently exposed to enriching activities outside of school, and are more likely to drop out. The National Education Association in 2020 launched the Community School Institute with a $10 million investment to help communities start and grow community schools. 39 community schools were established. In 2021, thanks to NEA member advocacy, the federal government provided $443 million in federal funding to support community school initiatives. In 2022, Biden administration doubled the federal funding. So the HST supports this act to require the Department of Education to provide grants for the planning and implementation of community schools. Community schools work. We ask for your support. in this bill. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there, oh wait, we got one more. Hawaii After School Alliance.
Hi, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. I'm Jen Masutani. I'm testifying on behalf of the Hawaii After School Alliance in support of HB 55. We stand on our written testimony and just wanted to highlight that community schools is a proven, time-tested strategy that can bring forth short-term results like improving family engagement and attendance and decreasing behavioral referrals. It's also proven to show long-term results like closing the achievement gap, improving academic scores, and graduation rates. And I'll just share a couple of examples from the continent. Webb Middle School went from the lowest to the highest performing Title I middle school in Austin, Texas after 5 years of implementing community schools. Cincinnati's community schools closed the achievement gap between Black and white students by 10% in 9 years. And in Durham Public Schools in North Carolina, their teacher turnover rate dropped from a high of 32% to 5% over 7 years. And lastly, a return on investment study in Albuquerque found that for each dollar invested in a community school coordinator, there's a return of $7.11 of net benefits. So we ask for your support of HB 55 so more schools in Hawaii have the opportunity to become a community school. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Seeing none, members, questions? Okay, Representative Kobayashi.
For DOE, there's no definition for community schools in this bill. And there is no definition for sustainable community school in this bill. And I would note that the words sustainable community schools are the first 3 words in Section 5, Section 4, and Section 3, but no definitions.
Yes. So just to
I mean, do you know what we're talking about, or are you just referring to federal definitions?
No. So currently, the department has 12 schools that are required to implement the full community school model. And so we do have a definition that we're working with these 12 schools on. And so we would like to continue this pilot and see how it evolves over a little bit of time and gauge its success. So we do have a definition.
You do have a,
Yes.
you,
Not just relying on federal definition.
okay, you might want to add it.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else? Representative Ward.
Chair, could I follow up with that, the DOE, please? How do they do this? Some of the results are very impressive, but what is the interface with the student and the community that makes this magic work?
I think a lot of it for what we've been finding with our pilot schools has been the family community engagement piece and really involving all of the school community.
And what's an example of how they do that? Is it like the private schools, all the parents come in and they tell the teachers what to do?
I think it starts with school leadership, principal and the staff, but Lisa, they work with a community lead, right? I'm gonna ask Lisa Wilkinson to come up. She's been heading this initiative.
If you remember 10 or 15 years ago, we had community-based management as a DOE new program. This sounds a little bit like a different version of that.
Thank you, Lisa.
How do you do it, I guess, is what's the sauce look like?
The main component
Could you just
is
state your name
the-
also before you?
Excuse me?
State your name and then.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
Lisa Wilkinson, Hawaii Department of Ed.
Okay, thank you.
We have a coordinator that works between the community and the school and helps develop the program, whatever is needed at the school.
For example, what do they do then to help a program? It said, as Laverne Moore mentioned, look, these are the ones who are low income, more in areas where they're in need of some remedial things. Let me put it that way.
Yes, so they may need, say they need a food bank at the school, then they can help get that in place. If they need after-school programs, academic programs, they can help get that in place. It's just very dependent on the unique needs of the school.
Could you give an example? You said there's some operating now. In what communities and what are they focusing on?
They are
would be the-
actually just getting them set up with the CSI MRI schools. So we don't currently have a program working, they are just being set up.
There's no model of any community and what their needs. There's nobody who's
Not at-
met with the community from the DOE, say, what do you guys want to get out of our school community engagement?
Not at this time.
Okay, the results sound good, but it's a matter of how do you actually
Of
get there?
getting it set up,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Okay, we're gonna move on to the next bill, House Bill 540 HD1 relating to education. First up is Department of Education.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Kurt Otoguro, Deputy Superintendent. Department stand on written testimony in support of this. The key is going to be if we can sustain this funding on a go-forward basis. I don't think anybody will disagree that we need to feed our students. A lot of the schools today run a deficit as it is because they don't turn away students when they are in need of a meal. And so really it's a matter of ensuring that this legislative body is willing to, because once you give it, it's hard to take away. And so this is a big commitment on the part of the state and of this legislative body. So we just encourage you to think hard. This is just round numbers. Without federal reimbursement, we estimate this investment to be $90 million on an annual basis. And with the federal reimbursement that we would apply for and get, it'd be about a $50 million investment from the state. So happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up is Hawaii State Public Charter Schools Commission.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Danny Vasconcellos, Finance Director at the Commission, here on behalf of Interim Executive Director Yvonne Lau. The Commission stands on its testimony providing comments with one clarification. We did follow up with the National School Lunch Program, and we actually have 20 charter schools of 21 that are currently participating. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and we'll be available for questions, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Attorney General?
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members, Deputy Attorney General Ann Horiuchi. As we noted in our testimony, we just found that in 4 locations in the bill, it mistakenly refers to lunch rather than breakfast. And so we've noted those specific places where there needs to be a correction made so that it makes sense in terms of the context and the reference to the federal regulation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next is HSTA.
Aloha Chair, members of the committee, Laverne Moore speaking on behalf of Osa Tui Jr., President of the Hawaii State Teachers Association. The HSD supports this bill. And on my way here, I stopped at my school to check on my long-term sub and my students. And I asked them, what do you think about this, having, your breakfast and lunch paid for? All of them said, yes, they gave it to us during COVID, and when we come back to school, they take it away from us. And just because we're not low income doesn't mean my parents can afford the lunch all the time, Ms. Moore. I said, oh, you know what, keep it up. I'll let them know what you folks think. And then the students who are low income says, by the end, even though we get free lunch, but when we go home, no more food at home, Ms. Moore. So this is the only meal we get in school, so you tell the legislators that too. So this is coming from my students. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Hawaii Public Health Institute.
Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Nate Hicks here on behalf of Hawaii Public Health Institute, stand in support of this bill. And also want to highlight that food is definitely part of the educational process. Nobody can show up to work, show up to school on an empty stomach. Several kids do already. And if we're going to, think that education is a valuable part of this community, we're going to mandate that kids show up to school every day. We have to make sure that they're eating as well. This is a great opportunity that we have, and I hope we pass this bill. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, please come forward. Appleseed.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Daniela Spoto with Hawaii Appleseed. We stand on our written testimony and support. There's also a couple of amendments that I wanted to highlight. It looks like right now the bill only applies to public charter schools. I think that might be not the intention. And so in sections 1A, 1B, and 1C, changing that to any Hawaii school participating in USDA's National School Lunch or School Breakfast program. Other states are really looking at this. This is kind of a tidal wave. I think after COVID, we're really recognizing that a lot of kids really rely and get their one really nutritious meal or 2 nutritious meals a day at school. So it's really gaining momentum nationwide. 22 states are looking at legislation that would do something similar right now. But they are also requiring that we maximize federal reimbursement. So the USDA has a few programs that you can take advantage of that ensure that we're going to get more federal funds drawn down. So we have a suggestion in there about including that provision that would require the DOE and charter schools to take advantage of those funds. And then considering making the program permanent so that we don't have to come back to the legislature. Parents and families and kids aren't, offered these free meals again like they were during COVID, and then again having it taken away, as a previous testifier said. Finally, we do have some calculations. I think the DOE said in their testimony it was going to be $9 million a year. Ours is a bit higher. I'm not sure if that only included lunch or didn't include breakfast, but I know it probably didn't include charter schools. So our projected amount would be about $20 million a year. That's including an increased participation rate. So anticipating that more kids will probably be taking advantage of these school meals. Also just thinking about how if we can get those farm to school goals going, then we can hopefully get more of those dollars to local farmers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Hawaii Children's Action Network speaks.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Nicole Wu from Hawaii Children's Action Network Speaks. I stand on our written testimony in support of this bill, and just wanted to point out that I also did some estimates of how much it would cost, and it comes pretty close to Appleseed. I came out with $19 million a year. I looked at the participation in the 2018-19 school year, which was like the last normal school year, and then looked at current meal prices. So pretty close to what Appleseed came up with. I support what the other testifiers said about how this would be great for our children. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Okay, seeing none, members, questions. Representative Ward.
HSTA, Laverne Moore, that was a pretty good job of channeling your students. By the way, what grade was your voice in?
They were juniors.
Oh,
and that was my 2020 class. So I have half of the class is straight A's.
Because you were the teacher, obviously.
Oh, no. No. And but it was interesting, and I know what they're telling is true, because towards the end of the month, some of them don't go to lunch and they stay in my class and they sit, and I know they're hungry, so I have food ready for them, snacks and everything, and today they told me, I miss more, why we stay in your room, because my parents didn't have the money to pay for it, I only have $100 a month, and once that's gone, it's gone.
That's kind of the direction of the question I want to ask.
Oh, sorry, did I give you the wrong answer?
No, I haven't asked the question yet.
Oh, you didn't ask the question. See, that's Laverne.
The stigma attached to those who may be the lesser of sorts, is there any labeling or, hey, this kid gets because of poverty and the other one doesn't? Is there any stigma by identity markers that this program does?
They took it away. So now you have to have your badge. So no one knows who's free lunch and who's not free lunch.
Okay.
So it's great. They really don't know.
Okay, that's good to hear. Thank you.
That was the question.
Yeah, that was the question.
Oh, sorry, I gave you the wrong answer.
That's why you're a teacher. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. Members, any further questions? Okay, I got a question for DOE. So, so your testimony is saying you spend about 90 and then you get about a $50 million reimbursement. Is that including the $8 million that Senator Schatz's press release? That he found additional money that is entitled to the state that we're not getting?
I'm not familiar with that.
Okay.
Do you know, Randy?
There's an increase.
Increase.
Reimbursement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is it 50? Is it 58 now, or is it 50? 50 is the number with it. Okay.
56 million.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Okay. Any further questions? Okay. We're gonna move on to the next bill, House Bill 1326 HD1, relating to the environment. First up is Department of Health.
Good afternoon, Chair Yamashita, Vice Chair Kitagawa, and members of the committee. My name is Michael Burke. I'm with the Hawaii State Department of Health. We submitted written testimony on this bill. Stand on our written testimony, available for questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition and Climate Change Protectors Hawaii.
Thank you, Chair Yamashita, Vice Chair Kitagawa, members of the Finance Committee. Ted Boland on behalf of the Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition and the Climate Protectors Hawaii. Hawaii is in a crisis with our landfills. We're running out of capacity. We need to take action. And if I was cesspool Ted yesterday, I want to be trash Ted today. Because it's another big problem. We need a new waste paradigm in Hawaii. We are currently using and dumping in the landfill or sending to the incinerators. Neither of those are sustainable solutions. We produce something like 9,800 gallons per day of leachate from the landfill, which has to be treated. We're putting 410 tons of toxic ash from the incinerator at H-Power into the landfill. Again, toxic. So we've got to stop making so much waste, and we need to find a way to take care of it. This bill provides a way to do that. It provides a new paradigm that's linear, not linear, but circular, where we are using less, reducing, and reusing. So that's a sensible way to go, and this bill provides a way to get there. The Department of Health would be charged under this bill with doing a needs assessment with input from the counties. There would be an advisory council that would work with stakeholders and experts to come up with a plan of action. And over the course of 4 years, we would get to a system that would be more circular and less linear. This bill, I think, is really important. It's not perfect. It certainly could be tweaked. We certainly are willing to work with the producers on ways to do it. But there is no companion in the Senate on this bill. It's a really important issue to get started on. This is the 3rd year that we've been working on this. So we need to get started, and I would therefore plead with the committee that they pass a bill out so that the conversation can continue in the rest of this session. I've seen a draft HD2, which I think is an improvement on the HD1, but whatever bill passes, I would hope a bill will pass. Because we have a big problem in Hawaii. We need to get going on it. It takes a number of years to site a landfill. We got to stop putting landfills over the aquifer. We can't just keep building bigger landfills. We've got to deal with the waste by producing less. So that's the purpose of this bill. I'm available for questions. Again, I thank you for hearing the bill, and I'm available to questions, as I said. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next is Zero Waste Oahu.
Aloha, Chair Yamashita and Committee. Nicole Chatterson here, the Executive Director of Zero Waste Oahu. We stand on our written testimony, and I'll also add that any waste management infrastructure, be that the incinerator on Oahu or any of our landfills, are incredibly expensive for taxpayers. So one thing that really excites me about this bill is that we'll be able to save money by not having to build so much expensive, large waste management infrastructure, which also comes with quite a few environmental justice issues. Thank you very much for hearing this bill.
Okay, thank you very much. Hawaii Environmental Change Agent, Solid Waste Task Force. On Zoom. No one's coming forward. Okay, next up is the Wine Institute.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Mihoko Ito, here today on behalf of the Wine Institute. The Wine Institute is respectfully opposed to this measure. There are several concerns that we have with it. Wine Institute is, generally speaking, very engaged in discussions regarding sustainability and willing to participate in discussions regarding waste reduction. But we are concerned on this measure for several reasons. First, it does cede legislative authority by creating an advisory council that would be tasked with basically creating and implementing a program with Department of Health. So in other words, they wouldn't have to come back to the legislature to implement a program. Second, the goal to reduce packaging by 70%, while laudable, by 2030 is very broad and not necessarily data-driven. In addition, the Wine Institute believes that what is really needed here to move a proposal like this forward is an extensive study as a first step to analyze the existing programs, to look at the gaps in the waste system here, and also look at the needs for recycling, reduction, or reuse. We think that a proposal like this needs to include extensive discussions with producers from all industries, and also needs to provide a framework for the eventual creation of a producer responsibility organization, or a PRO. Without that, the producers covered by this bill would be merely paying for this program without a stated plan. So for all those reasons, we do oppose this measure and are happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Consumer Technology Association.
Stand
Oh, that's
on
you
this
again.
testimony in
Okay.
opposition. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, next is Matthew Geyer.
Aloha, Matthew Geyer, Hawaii Environmental Change Agents. I'm testifying as an individual. We heard from Ted Bowen, Nicole Tatterson, how this waste is filling our landfills. And that's one issue. And another issue is the plastic, if it's not being disposed properly, which it frequently isn't, is ending up in our oceans. It's ending up on our beaches. If we don't take care of this problem soon, there will be more plastic than fish in our oceans. And that results in more and more plastic in our food. And it starts breaking down when it gets into our environment until it becomes what's called a microplastic. And some of these plastic particles get so small that they can get airborne, and we're breathing them in every day. Because of it's in the air, in the seafood, people drinking plastic when they use single-use plastic bottles. There's a study recently that says the total amount of plastic going into our bodies every day can be up to a credit card worth of plastic every single week. And since this is the Finance Committee, I encourage you to think about the cost to human health of plastic. And the cost to human health results in monetary costs that will have to be borne eventually. So we cannot keep making and importing this single-use plastic. It's literally killing us. Aloha.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, members, any questions? Representative Kila?
Miyoko, I have a question. Hi. Miyoko, is it safe to assume that with these kinds of measures that there will be an increase in cost of goods?
Absolutely. I mean, the whole idea of it is that the manufacturers assume financial responsibility for, creating, as some of the other testifiers said, a more circular economy and take responsibility for the packaging. So I think it is safe to say that there would be cost increases.
And would you say the folks that can afford the transition to zero waste are usually folks of affluence?
Well, I think regardless of what happens, the cost will increase. So it'll increase, the cost will increase for everybody. And of course, the more affluent would be able to absorb those. But at, the cost increases would be uniform across the board. So of course, they would affect low-income communities the most.
I know, because I just think my concern is when we're counting pennies, and any more penny can literally throw off the way a family operates. And then another concern that I was just wondering is, are the folks not already moving towards this idea of zero waste, or is there I'm assuming there is commitment, but just the timeline may seem too aggressive?
Yes, I think each industry, we represent several that are interested in this measure, and I think each industry really does have its own sort of internal commitments, and also are looking at ways to become more environmentally friendly, use better packaging. Like for example, you see, packaging that's filled with air, right? Where it used to be styrofoam or plastic, things like that. I think that the timeline overall is a concern. It's very aggressive, and without doing, where this has rolled out in other states, there really has been an extensive study done first to look at all these industries and say, what programs do we already have, and how do we, on top of that, add, requirements relating to packaging.
Is there any federal guidance happening around this conversation?
Not really, not that I'm aware of, actually, but I can get back to you on that and see if there is any discussion.
Please, thank you.
I will.
I appreciate it. Madam
Sure.
Chair.
Thank you.
Representative Ward.
Thank you, Chair. Ted, did you give yourself another moniker?
No, I leave that up to you.
You said, yesterday you said you were cesspool Ted, now you're trash Ted, you said?
What I said yesterday was that when people think of me, they think of cesspools.
Oh, okay.
And so maybe when they think of me today, they'll think of trash.
Okay.
I don't know if that's an improvement or what.
And the question is related to that, because the zero waste, is there a city, a state, a nation that actually has reached that or is near it? And where is it and what's the name of it?
I don't know the answer to that question. I do know that the concept of extended producer responsibility is been adopted by 4 states. They're all fairly recent, but they're all trying to move in this direction towards zero waste.
So it's aspirational at this stage. There's not a Swedish.
I think in the United States that's true, and I think they're more advanced with it in Europe, but I can't give you facts.
Okay. But the other question is, we are told that 40% of the food that we take is wasted. Where does that fit into all of this? Where does this 40% of the wasted food go?
Wasted food is a big issue, and we need to compost food, and we need to keep organics out of the landfill. So that's a part of this. I would say, which I didn't really highlight before, is that in response to Representative Keela's question, a part of the point of this in shifting costs to the producers who make the waste is to get it off of the counties. So when you're looking at the impact on individuals, there will be savings for county taxpayers. And that's really a big part of this bill and a big part of the reason to move to extended producer responsibility. But as far as the amount of food waste, that's a part of it, but it's sort of a parallel part as opposed to either the zero waste initiative, which the bill is setting up, or the packaging waste program that it's trying to set up. And there is, I would say, there is implicitly a study in this. The first phase of this is a needs assessment by the department and the counties working together to figure out statewide what kind of needs there are in order to reach our goals. And that's a study at least on that side, and we'd be happy to have the producers participate in that. We'd be happy to have the producers form a PRO, and we'd be happy to discuss the details of a bill with the producers going forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chair.
Thank you, Representative Kahlo.
This might be for Ted or one of the departments, I'm not sure. You brought up kind of the county's role in zero waste as well. So I guess my question for anyone in the audience is, should a zero waste initiative be county-led versus via the state, as they handle some of the similar related topics for infrastructure for their individual counties?
They certainly do. The counties are the ones who are doing it mostly now, as you know. They run the landfills, they collect the trash, they pay the bills. The Department of Health has more resources. The individual counties seem to be very poorly resourced when we talk to them. They participate in discussions, but they don't have a lot of people. They don't have a lot of resources. The state has some more. And with this bill, I would hope that the state can coordinate things for the counties, and it can be a joint effort where they're working together.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So I'm with the Department of Health. We don't have a lot more resources, but we do have more resources than the counties do. And so I think some of it is that, every county is significantly different, right? The Big Island has so much space, but then you look at, for example, on Hawaii with Keakaha, or here on Oahu with Waimanalo Gulch, we have some problems now with our, how we're going to address waste going forward, and it's going to cost money. And so the idea is, we're going to, at least with this needs assessment and working with the counties, to figure out and tailor individual responses for each county based on how they're managing their waste. But at the same time, as a state agency, we still have an overall goal and a target that we're aiming for with the cooperation of each county.
Just one follow-up, Chair.
Sure.
Does the department then want to help be the facilitator of this versus allowing the counties to just facilitate, fund, and implement it on their own based on what works best for their lands, for their environments, because they are very, very different, and each county, as you said, has varying needs, and let them just facilitate it on their own?
I think, to be honest, there is some merit to having at least an overarching theme. And I think that's where we as a state agency comes through. Instead of having, the counties going totally off in their own different ways, at least this way, there's somebody to kind of have some guardrails in place. And certainly I think for the producers, that's a huge thing, right? If each county addresses things in their own way, where there's assessments in their own way of dealing with some of these issues, every county is going to have different fee assessments, and I think that's what we're trying to get away from. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Department of Health. Oh, Representative Kobayashi, go ahead. Yes, sir.
Ted, the definition for zero waste talks about conservation of all resources. As you know, it takes a lot of energy to move solid waste from one place to another. For example, we have on the Big Island one solid waste disposal site, which happens to be in, I guess you would call it Lower Kohala. So all of the waste from Hilo and the east side goes over there at considerable non-conservation of resources, that is gasoline. And then we have the situation of glass. We don't recycle glass in Hawaii. So glass to be recycled has to go to the mainland, again at very considerable energy costs. So that's not conservation. It seems to me that you have to kind of retailor just your basic definition of zero waste to figure out whether you want to reduce zero waste for the sake of not filling up landfills as fast as they are currently being filled up, or zero waste in terms of, quote, conservation of all resources, etc. You have in that one definition things going in opposite directions, I think.
Yeah, the way we look at it is that, aspirationally, we someday get to zero waste for every waste, and we're in this, as defined in the bill. But there's some concrete things that, that we need to address in the near term, like you mentioned, with issues like getting trash trucked from, from Hilo over to the west side of the island. And so in those ways, if we're reducing the amount of packaging, for example, that's coming into the state, or developing ways to manage that packaging once it's in the state, then ideally that reduces the volume that's going from Hilo to the west side.
Of course. I think that we need to get more serious about aspirational goals versus practical goals. Whether it be farm to school or zero waste. I'm for motherhood, but we get a lot of problems with motherhood.
I wasn't here yesterday, but I heard all of it. I lucked out. And I agree, right? We do have, in a lot of these bills, and in our bills with the 70% reduction, that's a really big goal. And that's going to be difficult for us to reach. But at the same time, there's something to be said about shooting for the stars.
Well, 70%, unfortunately, is contradicted by 75% on page 9.
Yeah.
Somebody couldn't figure out the difference.
We'll stick with the lower number.
That's all right. Thank you.
sir.
Bye.
Okay, Representative Ayu.
Is there anyone here from the Attorney General's office?
I just have I have a question on the applicability of this section. At the end, it doesn't apply to deposit beverages regulated by the Food and Drug Administration or medical devices or supplementary devices. I'm just trying to figure out what items we're talking about in this bill. And if we're talking about packaging through interstate commerce, is this really something the state can legislate?
Representative, I'm sorry, Ann Horiuchi from the Attorney General's office. This is not my bill.
Okay.
But what I'd be happy to do is to take your question back and have it referred to the appropriate person to get
Okay.
back to you and to the committee.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
So let me,
Yep.
it's the applicability section at the end and
Yep.
whether there's an issue with interstate
Yep.
commerce.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Can I ask Ted the same
Please.
question, Ted, if you have an answer for this? And not the constitutionality question, but what the applicability of this is trying to achieve.
I think what you're seeing in those sections is trying to build in some exemptions specifically for the Hawaii 5 program. We're not doubling on top of that. That's exempt. Food and Drug Administration things need to be exempt because they're exempted federally.
I guess my question is, what packaging are we talking about that we're trying to get to zero waste on?
I think just about everything else. The plastic, the cardboard, the things that people wrap their packages in when they're sent. And those specific exemptions would not be covered, but everything else would be part of that.
Seems pretty far-reaching for this to try to regulate packagers in other states to be zero waste, no?
It isn't attempting to make them be zero. Well, to the extent they sell here, we're trying to make them do it here. But they're doing it in California. They're going to be doing it in California, and we're basically going to piggyback on that in terms of the impact on large. And let me say, this is not going to apply to small and medium size. This is intended to apply to the large packaging organizations, and they're already going to be working on this worldwide.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Chair.
Okay. Thank you. That's the Wine Institute. I'll ask you these questions so we get a different perspective. The my understanding is California is still studying this and they still want to come back. So, I mean, they have something in place, but they're still kind of looking at how to implement that.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you for the
Yeah.
question, Chair. My understanding with respect to all of the states is that they're still in the very early stages of implementation and studying. So I'm not sure that we even have real data from those states that can be instructive here.
Okay. 12 years ago, I went to Canada, and I went to a conference, and I took my wife, and I said, we're going to go on a site visit, and we're going to go to a landfill. And she said,
Sounds like a great time.
Yeah, she got excited.
Sure.
Okay, but anyway, so what was impressive about this, and the reason why I wanted to see it, was because it was huge. It was maybe, I don't know, the size of Lanai or something like that, right? But they were done taking methane out of the landfills. They were done, they recycled 100%. They just had everything. But what I took out of that was that they had scale, right? And that's what we don't have.
Correct.
We are separated by water. The smaller counties will struggle. No matter we have a problem shipping inter-island. If we had to ship trash inter-island or recycled items, it's difficult. Has your institute or others that you represent looked into things like that, at what that would add to, but being that we're different, right? We're not the same animal as a lot of people.
Correct. Yeah, I would agree with that, Chair. And certainly, Hawaii as an island state, we have unique challenges because we don't have industries. We can't just truck our glass to the glass recycling facility where we use fossil fuels to ship them off the island, whether it's all the glass, right? So and that's the same for other industries too, electronics waste, et cetera. So I think there are unique challenges to being an island state that are not found elsewhere, in addition to the fact that our costs are already high, right? Because we use the same fossil fuels to ship everything in. So,
and I think in general, I think all of us on this committee would want to, protect our, watershed, our aquifers and the reefs and all these different things. But I think, I think to make to Representative Keela's point, put these requirements and then add to cost of living, and Representative Ward always brings up the Alice families that we're hurting them. That's my concern, is that we're nickel and diming, and with all these different things over time, right? And we're recycling. We put a 5 cents requirement on plus 1.5 cents on bottles, and we're not recycling it, right? We're holding on to it, and even plastic, even other things, paper. The recyclers are holding it until the commodity markets will warrant them to ship it, and all this kind of stuff. So they have storage issues and costs there, and so I'm just wondering, are we too altruistic to some degree?
That's a good question. I do think the point you raise is a valid one. Even with respect to just the last several years, there are huge shifts, right, in the recycling markets worldwide. And so when you look at that, certain commodities have become their value has gone down dramatically. And so, it's all of those things, including inflation, right? That has had an impact on all markets, including, the vast range of goods that would be covered by this bill. And just to respond to the other question about what goods would be covered, it really is almost everything aside from that list of small exemptions. So I think that's, and where this has rolled out, there has been a lot more scale, right? We're very tiny compared to other states. And I don't think it's inconceivable to think that, for certain goods that are maybe severely impacted, that just wouldn't be an option. Corporations may have to look at how they would react to that business-wise. Would they just not have certain goods available here? I mean, that is a real possibility when you look at the costs here.
Yeah, in general, I've always thought that, we are a state, we're not a country. We get compared a lot of times to what other countries are doing. I think that makes it also a bad comparison. And we're an island state, right? So we're very different from other states too. We're not contiguous and all those other things. So thank you very much for that. Any further questions? Okay, members, we're going to move on to the next bill, House Bill 249 HD1, relating to the Hawaii Child Nutrition Program. First up is Department of Education.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Kurt Otoguro, Deputy Superintendent. Department stands on written testimony offering comments. I think this bill has multiple things going on with regard to transferring of an agency, assigning FTEs, and then really what we would like the committee to consider is having an agency that is normally responsible or is responsible for compliance and fiscal audits to get engaged with the operations and execution. So you have the HCMB now is an agent of the United States USDA, and their goals may be a little different as we get to our 30 to 30 state goals, and so that might cause some conflict. I think when we met with the other committees, transferring it from DOE to another agency was a placeholder. The original bill called for transferring it to the Office of the Auditor, which we felt inappropriate. We're offering another agency or another department within DOE, which has some compliance responsibilities under Deputy Chun. And so we just wanted to point these things out. Transferring these positions to HCMB does not seem appropriate if the intent of this bill is to help us execute and drive the operation to get to the goal. Or if you want more compliance and audits, then it'll be appropriate. But I don't think that's what this legislative body wants. Happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Department of Human Services, State of Hawaii.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. Joseph Campos, Deputy Director, Department of Human Services. The Department of Human Services stands on its written testimony, providing comments and appreciating the intent. But I do want to stress one section, and it's the fact that we respectfully request that the legislature reconsider the placement of the Child Nutrition Program Agency to a more appropriate entity. DHS does not have the technical expertise to provide oversight for the education programs executed by the Department of Education. In addition, if it is placed within DHS would need an extended effective date to implement the program, establish the positions, and will likely need additional resources to properly equip the new agency. I am happy to hear of DOE's testimony that they think they have a good spot for the agency, and so we just wanted to stress that fact. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next is Hawaii Farmers Union United.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Hunter Hevelin here on behalf of Hawaii Farmers Union United. We'll stand in support of our written testimony. I'd also just like to highlight that we view this as a mechanism to support the efforts of the Department of Education by providing additional resources and additional staff to forward us towards our already in place state goals for local procurement. And so we sincerely hope that the movement of HCMP to another site within the state will afford it the opportunity to further pursue its mission and continue the efforts that it has already been undertaking to draw down federal funds for use for local procurement, which have in the past not always been utilized when offered. And I think that shifting around the positions as they currently exist, as well as adding additional positions, would hopefully hasten us towards our goals. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up is Hawaii Public Health, the Institute.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. Dennis Chase from Hawaii Public Health Institute, Program Manager of the Farm to School Hui. And we are in support of this bill because we do believe that it will help the Department of Education to better serve the children that it's feeding every day. Basically, this is a rare situation where a regulatory agent and the people or institution it regulates are located under the same boss, basically. Whether it's in a different department or section or not, the fact is, if the superintendent calls both of them into his office, he's both their boss. So there is naturally a conflict there that we think this bill will resolve. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Local Food Coalition.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Kendall Matsuyoshi on behalf of the Local Food Coalition. Will stand on a written testimony in support of the bill, and just note that one of the three positions, it'll help these farmers with the technical assistance needed to provide to be able to source to the DOE. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Next is Hawaii Child Nutrition Program.
Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, honorable members of the committee. The Hawaii Child Nutrition, my name is Charlene Wong. I am the Program Administrator for the Hawaii Child Nutrition Programs. I stand by my written testimony, but would also like to add some comments. The issue of moving the Hawaii Child Nutrition Program out of the DOE is because both of the School Food Service Branch and the Hawaii Child Nutrition Program work under the same boss. And we are the only state agency in the United States that has this situation and works under the same boss as the School Food Authority. There's no so-called separation, there's no outside arbitrator on what is or is not a conflict, and therefore it would not be difficult for someone to have the ear of the common boss to instigate actions. And this can go both ways, but by separating the Hawaii Child Nutrition Program from DOE, both sides will be free to independently fulfill their necessary obligations. Although my office is understaffed, we are one of 2 states without a farm-to-school coordinator. The other 2 states are Rhode Island and Delaware. I can assure you that the state agency is not the weak link in the farm-to-school movement. As part of our requirements is that we also provide technical assistance to schools throughout the state. And also, for example, we would provide technical assistance to farmers. We have collaborated with partners to increase the use of local products through our Kaukau for Keiki summer program, our Team Nutrition Program Standardized Recipe Project, and the Local Foods to School grant. Our partner success of the Cacao for Keiki summer program doubled the number of breakfasts that were served, and they also served over 48% more lunches than the DOE during summer of 2021. During that time, our partners received 84% more federal reimbursement from USDA by working with my state agency. Our agency has always maximized the channeling of funding from DC to the state of Hawaii through various federal programs and grants. We've encouraged all of our operators to utilize and take advantage of the use and technical assistance offered by our office. It's unfortunate that the DOE returned $6.9 million in fresh fruit and vegetable funding to USDA since 2014. They declined to allow their staff to participate in free USDA-funded culinary training during this past year, during the school holidays, and declined to use the Local Food to School grant funds. Our program will continue to look for ways to increase funding to the state to support local food on the school meal plate, to benefit our children, our farmers, and our adult care facilities. If there were to be any coercion from the state agency, it would be that we would want to have all nutrition programs do the right thing, serve tasty, nutritious meals to our keiki and kupuna, support local farmers, and respect the taxpayers of the state. Thank you for this opportunity to testify. I am open to answer any questions. I can answer Representative Boyd's question about carrots. USDA is willing to increase the reimbursement rate for the state of Hawaii that they receive for providing free, reduced meals and so forth. We have been working on that since 2014. Unfortunately, the study was commissioned at the start of the pandemic, and so it was laid aside. However, over the past year, I've been talking to the Hawaii Congressional Delegation, and they were able to get an increase in the CONUS, which is the continental US reimbursement rate, which may answer the chair's question. And so until the study is completed, we had an increase in 13% for the stopgap funding to try to carry Hawaii through. My recommendation is that we purchase more local now so that we can prove to USDA that it costs more to provide a meal to our children, and we have the documentation to show that to USDA to get our meal reimbursement rate increased.
Thank you. Well said.
Okay. Any other question? Any questions?
Oh, we'll take questions after every
Okay.
other testifier. Thank you, Charlene.
Oh, and one more thing. We used 469,000 local produce during that summer of 2021 with our Cacao for Keiki children. And we put back $1.5 million into the Hawaii economy with that program by working with our partners. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up to testify, we have Hawaii Appleseed.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Daniela Spoto with Hawaii Appleseed. I support moving Hawaii Child Nutrition Programs out of the Department of Education. As Charlene mentioned, we're the only state in the nation that has a statewide school district, so we have a kind of unique situation here. There's a diagram in our testimony that kind of lays out why this is unique and why it's a little bit problematic for them to be able to give equal treatment not just to the school food services branch, but also to the many charter and independent schools that operate the USDA reimbursed programs. So we think that it'll help equalize the playing field and ensure that all of the schools get access to these resources. Also, yes, having a farm to school or multiple farm to school positions in that office will ensure that those resources can be offered and that support can be offered to all of the schools across the state. I think there's also a misconception, and I noticed a lot of the questions have been around supply and whether or not purchasing local is an issue of supply, which I think that is part of the issue. But child nutrition programs are a little bit more difficult than other institutional types of purchasing. It's not just supply and demand, and it's not just a procurement issue. There's all kinds of things, including recipe development, training staff, ensuring you meet the meal pattern requirements, fitting within that reimbursement rate, So there's a lot of different things that happen after the purchasing to ensure that the food that's purchased actually gets onto the plates of kids and then it gets into their bellies. So we think that these positions will really help make that next step happen. So we appreciate your consideration of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniela. Next up, we have Nicole Wu on Zoom. Not present. Okay. Anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, committee members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to go to our last bill on the agenda, HB 1394, relating to the Department of Land and Natural Resources. First up to testify, we have DLNR.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. David Smith. I'm with the Department of Land and Natural Resources, Division of Forestry and Wildlife. We'd like to, well, thank you for hearing this bill. We'd like to stand on our written testimony and also note that this year we received a nice allocation of funds for this Trails and Access Program. A lot of that money went into the Kula Forest Reserve. There was a huge backlog there from storm damage and whatnot. We did a lot of restoration and repair work to get that area open. It's one of the most popular recreation venues on Maui for forest and outdoor recreation. What we're asking for is to have this, the allocation we got this year to go recurring because there's a huge backlog of needed recreation repairs and infrastructure work to do in the state. So appreciate your attention to this. And, if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, David. There's also Bill Stormont from DLNR. Is he testifying separate? Oh, there we go, on Zoom.
Aloha, Chair Yamashita, Vice Chair Kitagawa, members of the committee, Bill Stormont, Outdoor Recreation Program Manager for the Division of Forestry and Wildlife, just available in the event there are any questions. Appreciate it. Aloha.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have Clayton Kubo on Zoom.
Clayton Kubo, Waimea Kauai, avid hiker, backpacker, fisher, hunter on the island of Kauai. Please support this bill. Normally, I do not, normally I do not want to make, comparisons, yeah? But in the fall, I was in Missouri. Their trails and their facilities over there is awesome. I'm hoping that you guys can maybe put, a little more funding into this, that facility-wise and trail maintenance can be awesome like Missouri. Mahalo nui, aloha.
Thank you, Clayton. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, committee members, questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to recess for decision making. Recess.
Okay, we're gonna reconvene our Committee on Finance for our 2:30 agenda today. First up is House Bill 247 HD1. Members, we're gonna keep this moving and move out as is. Any discussion? Representative Ward. Oh, you have not, okay, just a thumbs up. Okay. Any discussion? Vice Chair for the vote.
WR.
Oh, WR, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, Vice Chair for the vote.
Recommendation of the chairs to pass HB 247 HD1 as is. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Ayu.
Aye.
Representative Chun.
Aye.
Representative Cochran.
Aye.
Representative Garrett.
Aye.
Representative Kahaloa.
Aye.
Representative Kila.
Aye.
Representative Kobayashi is a WR. Representative Lamosal.
Aye.
Representative Morikawa. Representative Nishimoto.
Aye.
Representative Poi Poi. Representative Takenouchi. Representative Alcos.
Aye.
Representative Ward.
Aye.
Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. We're moving on House Bill 576 HD1. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? Representative Morikawa.
Just the reservations for me because I have a couple of chickens in my district that are statues. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, Vice Chair for the vote.
Okay. Recommendation of the chairs to pass HB 576 HD1 as is, noting the presence of all members who will be present for the rest of this agenda, and noting the reservations of Representative Morikawa. Are there any additional reservations? Are there any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you. We're moving on to House Bill 690 HD1 as is. Discussion. Vice Chair.
Recommendation of the chairs to pass HB 690 HD1 as is. Are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you. House Bill 55 HD1 as is. Discussion. Vice Chair.
Recommendation of the chairs to pass HB 55 HD1 as is. Are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, House Bill 540 HD1 as is. Discussion. Vice Chair.
Recommendation of the chairs to pass HB 540 HD1 as is. Are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, House Bill 1326 HD1. We're gonna move this out as is. The sponsor of the bill wants to keep the discussion going, so, as is. Any discussion?
Chair.
Yes?
I'm going to be voting yes, but I do want to acknowledge the concerns that were shared in the committee by myself and other members, especially around the conversation of cost. So voting yes, but I think those are valid concerns to monitor as the bill moves forward.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, Representative Ayu.
Reservations, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else? Okay, Vice Chair for the vote.
Recommendation of the chairs to pass HB 1326 HD1 as is, noting the reservations of Representative Ayu. Are there additional reservations?
Reservations.
Reservations by Representative Alcos. Any additional? Are there any reservations by Representative Kila? Are there any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. Voting on House Bill 249 HD1. Recommendation is to move as is. Discussion. Vice Chair.
Recommendation of the chairs to pass HB 249 HD1 as is. Are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, House Bill 1394 HD1 as is. Discussion. Vice Chair.
Recommendation of the chairs to pass HB 1394 HD1 as is. Are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. We are adjourned.